Hi, my name is Greg Peterson. I am often asked the question, how did the Robert H. Jackson Center begin? What was its genesis? Names I want to address that were instrumental in the formative years. The Honorable Sandra Day O'Connor, Eugene Gerhart, Dan Bratton, Carl Cappa, Betty Lenna, and Stan Weeks. Through the encouragement of the Gebbe Foundation in 1996, there was a project to erect a statue honoring Robert H. Jackson. And that statue was sculptured by Dexter Benedict and was unveiled by the Honorable Sandra Day O'Connor. I was in attendance, as was several dignitaries throughout Jamestown, and the essence of her speech was,
we're remembering today a product of this community and of its public schools. The most treasured honor that anyone can receive is one that comes from one's hometown, from those who knew the honoree first and best. So it is today. Robert Jackson, one of the finest justices ever to sit on the bench of the United States Supreme Court. Robert Jackson is a product of this wonderful community, of its soil, of its people, its public schools. It was here that he learned his lifelong curiosity for knowledge, an inspiration to seek self-improvement by hard work, and the courage to take responsibility.
was taken aback by all of that, but also awed by the fact of who spoke those words. And perhaps subliminally, in the back of my mind, I said, we at the members of the Jamestown Bar Association at least should do something. During that time period, my boss in Fredonia gave me a book authored by Eugene Gerhart called The America's Advocate, of which I read and found out that he in fact was alive in Binghamton, New York. 2000, traveled to Binghamton to interview Eugene Gerhart about his work on what turned out to be the first biography of Robert H. Jackson. Thereafter, I did a series of interviews with octogenarian lawyers in the Jamestown area who were part of the Robert H. Jackson funeral in 1954 at St. Luke's. Their memories of having met all 8 of the surviving Supreme Court justices who came to his funeral, which was unprecedented then, unprecedented since, never occurred. As part of that, it included Stan Weeks. Stan Weeks was a 33rd degree Mason, as was Robert H. Jackson, and he was actually an acquaintance of Robert Jackson. While I was doing that project, I had a chance to interview Carl Cappa, who had received the Chautauqua Region Community Foundation award, the John Hamilton Award. I asked Carl who was his role model as an Italian and American in Jamestown in the 1930s. And I would have bet the ranch he would have said Joe DiMaggio.
Was there a role model that you had when you were growing up?
Jackson never got the recognition he should have from Jamestown area.
Robert Jackson.
Yes, yeah. Robert Jackson. I really don't. I'm not an attorney or anything, but I do think he was one of the greatest living Jamestownians. And I don't think he's got the recognition he should, my personal. And I think he's a great accomplishment for Jamestown or somebody we should be really proud about. I really do.
And I had no idea that there was even a seed of Jackson Center concept. I saw Betty Lenna and I said, your next door neighbor, I met him, we talked about a project that maybe he might be interested in on Robert H. Jackson, a native. And he goes, well, if he's interested, let me know, keep me posted. It was very, very polite. And fast forward, we had a meeting on December 14th, 2000 in my office, which included Carl Cappa, Betty Lenna, Tom Cardman, Phil Morris from the Arts Council, who was sort of my muse, about the concept of maybe there ought to be something honoring the Robert H. Jackson. At that time, the Arts Council had already completed on Pine Street a Lucille Ball exhibit, which was basically posters, a little touch screen, and one of the right next to the town club. Well, ironically, there was a similar long building vacant to it, and I thought, well, all right, we should raise money and put something in there with, again, pictures, Nuremberg, and other things on Robert Jackson. That was the concept. Re-enter Stan Weeks, who said, if you're ever interested in doing something on Robert H. Jackson, the Scottish Rite Consistory building, which we're currently filming in, is available because the Scottish Rite Consistory is contemplating selling it. And since Robert Jackson was a 33rd degree Mason, it might be appropriate to have such a center here. This building's 19,000 square feet. I'm not sure what we would do with 1,000 square feet, but nevertheless, I came and met with Carlton Winchester and a few other people here at the Scottish Rite Consistory, 14th. I put in an offer in my own name to the building, matching the price that was ever offered, and I didn't even know what that was. I just left it blank. I said, I'll match it. And so I was told at that time when I delivered the contract that shortly thereafter, like within a day or two, they were going to vote on a prior contract offer that was being presented. We're going to vote on it. And I go, oh my gosh, we're not ready. We're not ready. So I asked Betty Lenna, I called her, and Betty Lenna was kind enough to call Judge Cass, who was a Mason, and implored him to see if they could stop it. So I'm not sure what happened, but there was a Masonic injunction stopped the vote on the sale of that building. Subsequently, I had a chance to meet with all the Masonic members and made the pitch. And without getting into a lot of detail, and I have gotten into detail on other things, we were successful with that. Now we've got a contract on the building, my name, and I go, gee, I would hope that we are able to assign it to an organization. I then convened a meeting in the theater and invited those members who attended at December 14th meeting there. And in attendance also included Dan Bratton. And ironically, Dan was having lunch with me prior to the 1:30 meeting. We were talking baseball and his retirement, and which include Harold Adams, who was the nephew of Robert H. Jackson, without any advance warning. Carl Cappa said, well, I'm at a point where, this is my last big adventure, and I'll be happy to commit $500,000 to this project. And Betty Lenna, with sort of tears in her eyes, sitting next to Carl, put her arms around him, and they weren't really close friends. They were just neighbors, business neighbors. Said, I will match that. And so Tom Cardman was there also. I'm sort of kind of looking, like him. He represents Gabby, and he said, I can't commit anything, but clearly if Betty's involved and Carl's involved and others are involved, we'll certainly do our best. We're leaving the meeting to go downstairs and do a quick tour, and Dan Bratton puts his arms around me and said, even though I'm retired, planning to go to Arizona, I'll be your executive director. I can give you X amount of time, and I'm your man. And I go, wow.
Really was kind of out of the blue. Greg Peterson here had an interest in the Robert Jackson Center. I was looking for opportunities to use my time to the benefit of the community. And there was a lot about this project that interested me. I'm a history buff myself, and for being able to hone in on an American historical figure like Jackson is a great opportunity.
It all began with a telephone call in 2000. Greg Peterson asked me if I would go over to his office. He, Carl Cappa, and I said Betty Lenna. Greg had amassed more information than you could imagine and film clips, all on Robert H. Jackson. More meetings and phone calls followed from that first conference 5 years ago. Mrs. Lenna and Cappa knew something was up, but neither quite understood at first Peterson's infatuation with the late Supreme Court Justice and native son would turn into a call for a museum and a learning center, the Jackson Center. After a time, we knew we could probably help Greg get this thing going, Mrs. Lenna said. And help they did. Both the old schoolmates lent their personal support, lobbied the right people, and donated $500,000 each to get the ball rolling. Quote, I thought it would be wonderful if we all got to know this man of whom we should all be proud, Mrs. Lenna said of Justice Jackson. I see it being one of the most important things in Jamestown that ever happened. Wow. Wow. Within a period of 30 minutes, we got commitments probably up to $1.5 million on this building and an executive director of the highest renown in the community in Dan Bratton. It was magic. And so that was a day which we got really started. We went downstairs, and I got to tell this one vignette. As you walk downstairs, you go into the kitchen, there was a incinerator there, and there it said, the name of it was Jackson. It was Jackson. You got to be kidding me. We actually reconvened the meeting to sort of an update, and at that time, we named the theater the Cappa Theater at that time, and it was very emotional, and we signed papers to be an incorporation. We were incorporated like in March of 2001.
We should start working on something. A big project.
The big mistake was letting it be recorded.
It says 100 years from now, it will not matter what my bank account was, or what sort of house I lived, or the kind of car I drove, but the world may be a better place because of me. And I keep that right here. That's enough of that. That's one of your schmooze.
In March of 2001, we owned the building, which included leasing back a good portion of the building to the Scottish Rite Consistory and related Masonic issues in April. And we wanted to do a magic moment to really launch, and so May 1st, Law Day, seemed to be a logical day in which to do that. Terrible. The building was in terrible shape, leaks all over the place. We worked with Bush Industries, Paul Bush, Lorraine Melise, and others, and they came up and completely redecorated the entire basement with the help of a whole lot of docents and volunteers, including Fran Galbato and everybody, to make it look like it was special. We were able to get Eugene Gerhart, who was the biographer here, to do the very first event. So that was May 1st, Law Day, 2001, which was a magic moment.
I feel as if I'm coming home, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor to pay our mutual respects to one of America's greatest lawyers, United States Supreme Court Justice Robert H. Jackson. Without hesitation, I regard him as one of the outstanding advocates of America.
And kudos to Cristie Herbst and the Jamestown Post-Journal, for they, on their own initiative, from his mighty pen, Robert H. Jackson, dated April 30th, 2001. And so we, the Robert H. Jackson Center, was formally launched with a program with the biographer Eugene Gerhart on May 1st. And that was really a magical, magical day. One sense of thought is the tremendous support we've received throughout the community, donations, educational institutions. It has been very reaffirming in seeing that reaction to what we have tried to accomplish.